Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Analysis for UPSC 2025, and it is 18th July today. So we are going to discuss 8 important articles which were in the Hindu newspaper today. We are going to discuss them in detail and also in the simplest language possible. So before we start our discussion, I would like to introduce you people this channel. Every day we upload two videos. In the first one, we discuss the daily news analysis, which is this video, and in the evening or night session, we would upload another video in which we would discuss the daily quiz session. In the daily quiz session, we would upload two kinds of questions. First, few questions that would be related to the current affairs, so that it will give you the idea how the current affairs can be asked in the exam, and also that will help you in revising your current affairs. And also we take up a few previous year questions in which we discuss them in detail and give you the idea how the questions were asked in the previous years and how those questions could be asked, how the points from those questions could help you in eliminating many options in the next exam. So with this, I would like to request you guys, please do subscribe to this channel and share with your friends, and by doing so it will definitely boost our confidence, and it will boost our morale, so that we will work more hard on it and provide you the best information possible. So without any delay, let us start our discussion right now. Today we have to discuss 8 topics which are very important, which were in your Hindu newspaper, and we are going to discuss them in very simple and basic language. Here the first article is about the intergenerational equity as tax devolution criterion. We will discuss this. We will discuss the intergeneration and intragenerational equity. Then after we will discuss the post-harvest losses, we will discuss these articles in context to the information given in the newspaper, and we will try to gear that towards मतलब कि उसकी direction दे के how that would be used in your preparation. Then the third article we will discuss with respect to the lack of jobs. Then fourth, subcaste reservation and what are the problems associated with it. Then the political reservation of women. Then after we will discuss the Maharashtra's public security bill, then the real accident, and finally the public capital expenditure. So without any delay, let's start our now. First, the first article which we have to discuss is about the intergenerational equity as tax devolution criterion. First we should know what the tax devolution is. We should have little concept about it, who provides this, and how a government earns money and how states earn money. About tax devolution, it is the distribution of taxes by the center. It is done by the recommendation of the finance commission. This is little information which you should know. Now about the center sources, what are the sources of the center? I want to मतलब कि मैं आपको पहले एक idea देना चाहता हूँ, so that we will understand the concepts given here. First हमें पता होना चाहिए what are the sources of center. The sources of center, there, if broadly classified, there are two sources of center. First one, it is the taxes they collect. Second, it is the borrowings they do. अब जो taxes collect करते हैं वही वो that those taxes they distribute to the states also. Now और if any मतलब कि अगर states को पैसे चाहे तो center can borrow for them. अब तरीका ये है कि जो मतलब पूरे देश में जो टैक्स कलेक्ट हो रहा है, सो दैट इज डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड, बट जो स्टेट्स से देयर आर टू टाइप्स ऑफ स्टेट्स, वन आर डेवलप्ड एंड अदर्स आर लीस्ट मतलब कि लेस डेवलप्ड. अब जो डेवलप्ड स्टेट्स है उनका जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है टुवर्ड्स द वे दे पे देयर टैक्सेस, दे आर वेरी मच डिसिप्लिन्ड टुवर्ड्स दैट, और जो उनका कंट्रीब्यूशन है टू द जीडीपी दैट इज वेरी हाई. तो अब उनका कहना है कि जो स्टेट्स का कहना है कि जिस तरीके से हम अपना जीडीपी को कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं उस तरीके से दे आर नॉट गेटिंग द फंड्स फ्रॉम द center, that is some different issue, we will come to that also. Now here, coming back to our topic, जो दो चीज़ें हमने देखी, सेंटर का जो सोर्स है, दैट इज ईदर फ्रॉम टैक्सेस, सेकंड सोर्स इज फ्रॉम बोरोइंग. नाउ दैट ऑन दैट द इफ द टैक्सेस आर हाई, मतलब कि अगर टैक्सेस ज़्यादा होंगे, सो देयर वुड बी लीस्ट बर्डन ऑफ बोरोइंग on the center. So वही least burden will qualify to other generations also. In simpler terms, if we would define the intergenerational equity, it would be like that, from one generation to another generation. मतलब कि अगर हम कोई सर्विस ले रहे हैं from the government, that service will go to the another generation, it should go without any burden. और वो कैसे without any burden जाएगा? If we pay our taxes on time and there would be least borrowing from the state, from the center, so this burden would be very less on the another generation. That is called intergenerational equity. मतलब कि अगर हम कोई रिसोर्स अभी यूज कर रहे हैं, कोई सर्विसेज यूज कर रहे हैं फ्रॉम द सेंटर, फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट, और वी आर पेइंग टैक्सेस फॉर दैट, और वही मतलब उसी चीज पे, मतलब ऑन द सेम बेसिस दैट गोज टू द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन विदाउट एनी फर्दर बर्डन. मतलब कि कोई बर्डन, फॉर एग्जांपल गवर्नमेंट ने कोई बोरोइंग ना की हो, तो उसकी वजह से वो बर्डन हो जाएगा दूसरी जनरेशन पे. सो टू, मतलब कि उस बर्डन के बगैर वो जाना दूसरी जनरेशन को, दैट इज कॉल्ड intergenerational equity. So in this way we can we can provide better services to the next generation if we pay our taxes on time. Now we now right now what we discussed about tax devolution. We discussed about the finance commission's recommendations about tax devolution. Few states get more and few states get less. We discussed about the sources of government income. There are two kinds of, एक तो टैक्स है उसमें, और टैक्स कलेक्शन, और दूसरा है बोरोइंग. अगर टैक्स कलेक्शन अच्छा हो और द सर्विसेज दे प्रोवाइड टू दिस जनरेशन एंड दैट क्वालिफाइज टू द अनदर जनरेशन विदाउट एनी बर्डन, सो दिस कम्स अंडर द इंटर जनरेशनल इक्विटी. और अब अगर ये टैक्स कलेक्शन कम हो और बोरोइंग ज़्यादा हो, दैट इट विल पुट मोर बर्डन ऑन द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन एंड दिस विल लीड टू द इनइक्वालिटी, और दिस वुड लीड, मतलब वो उनको प्रॉब्लम करेगा. Then here comes the another concept. It is called the Ricardian's equivalence theory. It was mentioned in the article itself. This Ricardian equivalence theory, we have to study it in context with the Indian conditions. Right now, the financial conditions we are. About Ricardian equivalence theory, it is very simple. What does it say? That if the government borrows more, then the savings in the hand of the people should increase. How? Let's examine that. Let's break it down. For example, अगर government ज़्यादा borrow कर रहा है, what does it mean? The people are paying less taxes. जब लोग लेस टैक्स पे करते और वो assume that by the time income of the people will increase after every year, they assume this is very much, मतलब कि कॉमन है. तो उसकी वजह से टैक्सेस स्टेबल रहेंगे, इनकम इंक्रीज हो रही है लोगों की, और गवर्नमेंट बोरो कर रहा है. सो उसका मतलब क्या है कि जो सेविंग होना चाहिए था वो लोगों के पास इंक्रीज होना चाहिए. But this is not the case within India. Because in India we have the problem of inflation. Even if the taxes are stable, but due to inflation, people have to spend more. Every year there is inflation. Inflation is on rise, so people have to spend more, and जिसकी वजह से savings उनके पास ज़्यादा नहीं रहती. Now coming to the another concept which was in the article today, it talks about the intragenerational equity. We discussed about intergenerational equity. What we discussed in it, that from one generation to another generation, how devolution should go if we pay our taxes on time. So it would be good intergeneration equity because they would have least burden. About intrageneration equality, it talks about the contribution of states. For example, we'll take the example of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. They are good taxpayers. They are contributing to the country's GDP, and in respect to those states, if we have UP and Bihar, they are not contributing that well to the GDP. So, but in reality, फिर क्या होता है कि when the funds are distributed, UP and Bihar, they get more funds with respect to the Kerala and Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. So what does this mean? That the richer states, they feel that they are not getting according to their work, what they are doing in developing the GDP of the country. But here the case is, agar aapko by having only few states developed, it does not mean whole puri country developed hai, but for that all the states have to contribute. दूसरी बात, this is the necessity of the time. We have to give their poorer states more money to spend on for their infrastructure, and that on other things, for example education institutions, health, and other important things which are required, so that we will put every state in the line. So this is about the intergeneration equity, मतलब कि कैसे distribute होता है this, the devolution of taxes. So in it is very simple कि मतलब अगर हम और एक बार repeat करना चाहेंगे, for example richer states, they are paying more taxes and they are getting the benefits they are getting back or lesser than those states who are paying less taxes. But this is the necessity of the time, because we have to make all the states in line. और दूसरी बात, जब हम जो गरीब स्टेट्स है उनको पैसा देंगे, we give them more funds, they will invest in infrastructure, they will need instruments for that, they will need technology for that, and that technology is in the richer states, so they will buy it from the richer states, and it will definitely help the richer states also. So in simple terms, this is the necessity of the time right now. And also here, to balance this मतलब कि दोनों states को एक balance पे लाना है, मतलब to make them equally developed. What is the need of the time now? First, tax collection needs to go up. Second, the nation cannot, first we should understand that nation cannot develop because of few developed states only, so we have to put efforts in other undeveloped states also there more funds should be given to the low income states, revenue expenditure needs to decrease, and also government services needs to improve, government services need to be improved in these states, and rationalization of schemes is one of the important criteria to uplift the poorer states. So with this, I hope I was able to deliver this topic in very simple language. Let me repeat it once more. Here we have discussed few major four important concepts in it. First, tax devolution, very basic. The distribution of tax is done by the central government. It does it on the recommendations of Finance Commission. Then we discussed about the intergeneration equity. Before in intergeneration equity, we discussed about our contribution to the government. We should know that what are the sources of government's income. It is taxes collected and the borrowing is done. If taxes collected are high, then the services we enjoy right now, that would be enjoyed by the next generation without any extra burden, because the borrowings would be less. Then we discussed about the Ricardian equivalence theory. In this, we discussed if the borrowings increase, the savings should increase also. But in India's case, savings don't increase because of the burden of the inflation. Then we discussed about intra-generation equity. It is between the states, as the richer states pay more taxes and they get less revenue for that, less tax devolution for that as compared to other states. And it is the necessity, because the nation does not develop because of only few richer states. We have to put every state in the line, so it is necessary to give the extra funds to the poorer states. So this was about the intergeneration equity as tax devolution criterion. Now to the next article. Here it talks about the post harvest losses. जब एक गरीब फार्मर काम करना स्टार्ट करता है अपने फील्ड पे, so from the first day till he harvests, so मतलब he puts lot of work in it and he depends on lot of things. वो डिपेंड करता है कि नेचर का मूड कैसा होगा, he depends upon कि फर्टिलाइजेशन अवेलेबल कैसी होंगी, मतलब हर एक चीज़ें उसको बड़े ध्यान से करनी होती है. आफ्टर ही हार्वेस्ट, बट उसको मतलब लोगों को लगता है कि जो ही वो फल उसके मतलब कि he gets the food, he gets when his crops develop and they are ready for the harvest, so people think that it is over. There are what he achieves, that is final, but the case द रियलिटी इज़ डिफरेंट, क्योंकि उसके बाद भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें इसमें आती है जिसकी वजह से इसको लॉसेस होते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल पहले तो उनको ग्रो करने में अगर कहीं ओले पड़ेंगे या अनइवन बारिश होगी, अनइवन रेन होगी, तो उसकी वजह से नुकसान होगा। जब वो हार्वेस्ट करता है उसके बाद भी उसको नुकसान होने के बहुत सारे चांसेस होते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल उसने एक जगह जमा किए एंड देयर इज अनइवन unseasonal rain, so it would definitely drain his crops, so it would damage his hard work. और दूसरा प्रॉब्लम जो आता है वो लॉजिस्टिक्स का प्रॉब्लम आता है। जो लॉजिस्टिक्स, द प्रॉब्लम इन लॉजिस्टिक्स इज मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट एंड मोर यू नो impactful as compared to other losses, क्योंकि हम देखेंगे फॉर एग्जांपल जो लॉजिस्टिक्स का लॉस होता है इट इज़ ऑल्सो, इसका इम्पैक्ट हर एक पे आता है। इसका इम्पैक्ट कंज्यूमर पे भी आता है, इसका इम्पैक्ट रिटेलर पे भी आता है, होलसेल वाले पे भी आता है, और ऑन द ट्रांसपोर्ट सर्विस ऑन दैट ऑल्सो। फॉर एग्जांपल हम देखेंगे इन सिंपल कंडीशंस, एक गरीब किसान है, उसने ही हैज़ गॉट हिज क्रॉप्स, मतलब कि फाइनली he has his मतलब कि items which he wants to sell in the mandis, तो वो क्या करता है, he would send them by truck, so there are losses due to that, क्योंकि क्या पता है कहीं एक्सीडेंट्स के चांसेस है या दूसरे चीज़ों से। फिर वो ट्रक से वो मंडी पे लेता है, फ्रॉम मंडी he has to, मंडी से वो दूसरी जगह जाएंगे टू द होलसेल रिटेलर के बाद वो जाएगा होलसेल कंज्यूमर के बाद वो जाएगा रिटेलर के पास, रिटेलर से वो जाएगा कंज्यूमर के पास। सो देयर आर, जो लॉजिस्टिक्स का ये मतलब कि सर्कल है यहाँ पे, इट इज़ वेरी डेंजरस एंड इट इज़ वेरी कॉस्टली, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट द फूड which finally reaches to the consumer, it is highly costly and it leads to the rise in inflation. So here what is the, अब फॉर एग्जाम्पल ये तो नॉर्मल क्रॉप्स की बात है, व्हाट इफ दीज आर द पेरिशेबल क्रॉप्स, फॉर एग्जांपल फ्रूट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल वेजिटेबल्स। अब हम टमाटर एग्जांपल लेंगे ऑफ टमाटोज एंड फॉर एग्जांपल एप्पल और मैंगोज और अदर फ्रूट्स, तो वो ज़्यादा टाइम रुक नहीं सकता है, वी कांट होल्ड दोज perishable fruits for longer time, we can't hold these perishable crops for longer time, because अगर वो जाएंगे ना उनका, for example they have to grow from the farmer's house to the mandi, then from mandi to the customer, so it is a long journey from farmer's house to the, from the farmer's farm to the कस्टमर। सो दीज पेरिशेबल गुड्स अगर ये फॉर एग्जांपल 1 kg होगा तो पहुँचते पहुँचते एट द टू द कस्टमर इट विल ओनली, मतलब कि सिर्फ 1 पाव रहेगा, बाकी सारा खराब हो जाएगा इसमें। सो टू रिड्यूस दिस टाइम, पहली बात टू रिड्यूस द कॉस्ट, सो देयर द रोल ऑफ द रेलवेज कम्स। अगर फॉर एग्जांपल रेलवेज होंगे and they are used for this transport of these perishable goods or any crops for the farmer, it will definitely reduce the time period, it will reduce the cost of the logistics, and definitely will reduce the harvest losses for the customer, for the farmer itself, and it will definitely help in increasing the income of the farmer, and definitely it will have its role in controlling the inflation. So this was about the post-harvest losses. We have, if we would try to recap it, there are many kinds of loss. For example, losses due to logistics, unseasonal rains, losses due to accidents, or अब अगर perishable goods होंगे that, and if the roads are blocked, then वो पूरा perishable goods they have to throw them out because everything will be destroyed within 1 or 2 days. So to overcome these issues, the concept of rails freight trains are here, so that this time period will be reduced, these burden of मतलब कि road blocks won't be there, burden of accidents would be very less, and or it would reach on the time, और जिसकी वजह से the cost of these crops will be maintained, and it will definitely impact the inflation, it will help in reducing the inflation. और इसी मतलब कि because of that वो अगर हम example देंगे, we have किसान rails during COVID, it helped the Kisanos very much during the COVID time. So by this we complete this article, which is post harvest losses. Now coming to the next article, it talks about the lack of jobs. We know we are in this situation where the youth are facing the lack of jobs in our country, and also right now we are facing the best demographic dividend. Most population of our country is youth, which are employable. But here the concern is, if the government is not able to provide the jobs to the youth, so what can happen? This youth can मतलब कि वो उन सारी एक्टिविटीज़ में पाए जाएंगे which could lead to the demographic disaster. The improvement हुई, मतलब कि जो मतलब इस वक्त जो चीज़ हम एंजॉय कर रहे हैं, जो मतलब कि जो फ़ायदा हमें मिलना चाहिए डेमो अपनी अपनी पॉपुलेशन की वजह से, द यूथ वी हैव राइट नाउ, वी वोंट बी एबल टू get that benefit from our youth population. But in fact हम अपना youth ही खराब करेंगे. They won't be able to find, they are not able to find the jobs, and उसकी वजह से जो हमारा future रहेगा that would get destroyed, क्योंकि यही जो आज के लोग हैं, they are going to become the older people, and their kids are going to be the next generation. If they are not able to feed themselves, how they can feed their children, and how they can secure their future itself? And so it will definitely lead to the demographic disaster. So right now the need of the time is creation of the jobs. But why the government is not able to create the jobs? Here the author asks this question, and he answers it in different way. First he says, usually what happened, the people there, the unskilled people used to take to get the job, it was very easy for them to get the jobs. But right now, because of the technology, it had replaced the unskilled jobs. For example, हमें होता था वो कॉइन मतलब पैसे गिनने के लिए in banking sector, और या हम token collector या all that stuff. But right now, because of the technology has replaced those jobs. The second problem in here is the government. People are preparing for the government jobs. It is also one of the concern, and government is not able to meet the standards of the students. Government is not able to provide those jobs, and also the public sector is not able to provide the jobs. Government is not able to provide the jobs. People are preparing for the jobs, but they are not able to provide it. For example, I will give you an example. Right now you guys are studying for IAS, and every day 10 lakh students, they apply for the IAS exam, and only 1000 get qualified. you know it is, हम ये नहीं कहेंगे कि वो 10 लाख में, चलो हम मानेंगे 5 lakh were not serious aspirants, but at least 5 lakh were serious. And why they are not able, मतलब कि वो जॉब नहीं ले पाए, because all मतलब वो कितना ही हार्ड वर्क कर रहे हैं, बट दे आर नॉट एबल टू गेट द जॉब. और दूसरी बात, उनके दिमाग में एक डिलेमा रहता है, दे हैव 6 चांसेस. सो फॉर 6 years they don't create any voice, मतलब वो कोई आवाज़ नहीं उठा रहे. वो गवर्नमेंट, दे आर नॉट आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस टू द गवर्नमेंट, बट व्हाट दे आर डूइंग, दे आर इन्वॉल्वड इन देयर प्रिपरेशन. वो इस होप में है कि उनका सिलेक्ट होने का चांस है 0.001% समथिंग. They are in hope of that they will get qualified in this exam. But in reality what is happening कि वो अपना वक्त ज़ाया, मतलब कि ये भी मतलब कि आई एम नॉट डिमोटिवेटिंग यू, बट दिस इज वन ऑफ द पैराडॉक्स इन इट. मतलब ये एक इसका ड्रॉबैक है कि इतने 10 लाख स्टूडेंट हर साल IAS के लिए अप्लाई करते हैं, बट फॉर 6 years दे डोंट मेक एनी नॉइज, क्योंकि वो उनके दिल में ये होता है कि दे विल गेट द जॉब, दे विल गेट द जॉब, दे विल गेट द जॉब, बट दे आर एट द एंड, खुदा ना खास्ता जब वो फेल हो जाते हैं, सो आफ्टर 6 years दे आर नॉट एबल टू फाइंड एनी जॉब. और दूसरी बात, गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट एबल टू प्रोवाइड जॉब्स फॉर देम, एंड दिस लीड्स टू द, मतलब इसकी वजह से जो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट लेवल हमारी कंट्री में, दैट हैज स्काईरॉकेटेड. एंड ऑल्सो जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में, जब भी किसी डेवलपिंग कंट्री is moving towards the development, the manufacturing sector plays the main role in it. But unfortunately in our country we jump directly from the agriculture to the services. जो हमने manufacturing का जो part था वो missed it almost. Or because missing of the manufacturing in our country, this led, मतलब इसकी वजह से डिजास्टर हुआ हमारी कंट्री में कि हम उतने जॉब्स क्रिएट नहीं कर पाए. और फिर अगर हम देखेंगे कमिंग, अब इतना ही इशू नहीं है कि जॉब नहीं मिल पा रहा है, इवन कि द स्टूडेंट्स दे हैव द क्वालिफिकेशंस बट दे आर नॉट, अब वो अगर प्राइवेट कंपनी में जॉब करना चाहिए, बट दे आर नॉट दैट क्वालिफाइड फॉर दैट. अगर स्टूडेंट्स प्राइवेट कंपनीज में जॉब लेना चाहिए, बट दे आर नॉट क्वालिफाइड फॉर दैट, बिकॉज देयर स्किल सेट इज नॉट देयर व्हाट द प्राइवेट कंपनी नीड्स. because private companies need the people who can increase their profit. And for that मतलब कि हमारे पास जो education system है that is not so superior that कि उन्होंने our education system का जो focus है that is on theory learning but it is not practical learning. जो हमारे कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स है, अगर हम देखेंगे हमारे इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेज से कितने सारे इंजीनियर्स हर साल निकलते हैं बट दे आर नॉट qualified to get a job because उनका skill set वो नहीं है. They have just qualified the exam but they don't have the skills to get the job. So all these limitations on the individuals, lack of manufacturing, all these things which we discussed finally create this problem, had created this problem in our country. So right now what is the need of the time that we should not मतलब कि we have to look outside मतलब these things मतलब कि सिर्फ job मिलना चाहिए. So we should do something like मतलब कि we should go for startups. For example, we should be the job givers rather than job seekers. मतलब कि हम अब किसी स्टार्टअप की तरफ जाना चाहिए. Other thing we should do other things so that we can help in growing our country. So this was about this. Now coming to the article, it is about the sub-cost reservation, problems in sub-cost reservation. Here if we should know that in 2004 there was a Supreme Court judgment in the case in the case between EV Chinnamnath something versus state of Andhra Pradesh. Sorry, I forget his name. It is something like that. So in this case, what the Supreme Court said that they were asking for the sub-reservation in schedule costs. Should it be given by this state legislature? And in this case, the Supreme Court said, no, it is the violation of Article 14. It is the violation of equality, and this if this has to happen, it should be done by the parliament. उनका decision चलेगा. States are not in a position to do that. So in 2024 in Feb, Supreme Court wants to relook in the reservation in subcosts. वो इसमें अब इस जो ये 2004 की जजमेंट थी उसको रिलुक करना चाहते हैं. 7 जज बेंच इसमें रिलुक करेंगे और देखेंगे व्हाट आर द क्राइटेरियाज नीडेड. अगर हम देखेंगे दे आर मतलब कि देखना है कि जो ये सब कॉस्ट से अगर हम उनको डिवाइड करेंगे ऑन व्हाट बेसिस वी शुड गिव देम रिजर्वेशन, तो क्या क्या चीज़ें हम देखेंगे उनमें. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर किसी कॉस्ट में 3 सब कॉस्ट है, इफ ए एंड बी फॉर एग्जांपल A, B, they are doing well, so we have to exclude them. And C and D are doing not so well, so we have to include them. So the Supreme Court will discuss on that and give it a judgment. Now, what are the policies which are required for this? मतलब कि to curb this मतलब कि जो मतलब अगर हम देखेंगे why we are giving this reservation to these people, because उन्होंने from the history from the history from the मतलब कि बहुत सारे सालों से पहले, if we will go back in the history we would see that there were violation of rights for these people. They were very much discriminated. इनके साथ बहुत ज़्यादा ज़्यादतियाँ हुई है. So what are the policies which the government has brought in to improve these costs? अगर हम देखेंगे फर्स्ट लीगल सेफ गार्ड्स अगेंस्ट कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, ये चीज़ देखनी है मतलब कि पॉलिसी मेकर्स को. पहली बात है कि लीगल सेफ गार्ड्स फॉर अगेंस्ट कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन. दूसरा रिजर्वेशन इन पब्लिक जॉब्स, उनको मतलब कि इन ही मतलब सब कास्ट या सब कास्ट को रिजर्वेशन देना इन पब्लिक जॉब्स. एंड थर्ड इज मेजर्स टू इम्प्रूव ओनरशिप ऑफ लैंड. देखिए जो पहले दो हमने देखे, एक लीगल सेफ गार्ड्स अगेंस्ट कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन एंड सेकंड इज रिजर्वेशन इन पब्लिक जॉब्स. दीज आर फॉर द प्रेजेंट जनरेशन, जो इस वक्त जनरेशन है, जो वर्किंग जनरेशन है, उनको ये चीज़ें हम दे सकते हैं. बट व्हाट अबाउट द पीपल हु हैड ऑलरेडी फेस्ड दैट एंड दे आर नॉट एबल टू गेट द जॉब्स, हु हैड because of the cost discrimination, they were not able to get the education. What about those people? So for them the third option comes. It is measured to improve ownership of the land, for example for asset creation and all that. So it is said here that rather than giving the author here says that rather than giving the reservation, it is better to improve the help in asset creation or asset generation. So this was about this sub-cost reservation in SCs. Now forward, it is about the political reservation of women. We had seen the recently held elections in UK. We saw there was 40% legislators were women there, and also in our country we saw that 14% reservation of women in recent elections in India. With the reservation of women, we had brought 106th amendment, Constitution Amendment Act, and it will be applied after this census is done. So in this regard, here the question, the author asks the question: should there be in the politics, should there be the, अगर हम पार्लियामेंट में होना चाहिए, should the reservation criteria be on the political parties or it should be on the overall legislation? मतलब कि अगर फिर ये डिस्कस कर रहा है कि अगर हम देखेंगे तो जो रिजर्वेशन ऑन पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज है, दैट हैज वर्कड, if we would look at different, look in the history, the reservation in political parties will work better than the overall reservation in the legislature. He then gives the example of Pakistan, where they have the legislation, overall legislation, reservation in overall legislation, and it definitely showed that it had not worked. So it is preferred that there should be quota in the political party, and this quota should not, it is not here that the quota should be imposed on them. It could be the voluntary. For example, अगर हम तृणमूल कांग्रेस का इस वक्त देखेंगे, they have 38% reservation for women, and similarly other political parties should go for that, and by this the woman empowerment will increase, and their representation in political sense would also increase, and they would be the policy makers rather than they would remain on the, मतलब कि उनके लिए कोई और पॉलिसी बनाए, they would be the policy makers. So the author says it is better to have the quota in the political parties rather than the overall legislation, overall parliament. So moving to the another article of today's discussion, it talks about the Maharashtra Public Safety Security Bill. It said there is huge, outburst against that. It is said that it is the draconian law because it is very, मतलब कि ये बहुत ज़्यादा vague language is there, and it may violate the human rights, it is said. And why the Maharashtra government brought it to fight the urban Naxalism? It is said that Maharashtra is becoming the hub of the Naxalism. They tabled special security bill, and what are the key provisions of this special security bill? Here are some. People can be arrested without warrant, and first, which is very dangerous, states can designate any organization and unlawful organization. It is said that if any organization is not in good terms with the state, then they can be termed as the unlawful organization, and also there is a lot of vagueness in the language there. और दूसरी बात, when we have different laws such as UAP and Mokoko in Maharashtra, what was the need of this Maharashtra's public security bill? So this is the opposition which is going against this public security bill in Maharashtra. Now moving forward, we have another report on Kanchenjunga rail accident. There is a report on it. Now they say that this accident was meant to happen because the pilots which were driving the rails, they were not well informed about the situation. They were not well informed about the stations which were under maintenance. They were not informed about the defective signals, and the maximum speed which they have to keep was 15 kilometers. और दूसरी बात, for every defective signal they have to wait for 1 minute. जो वहाँ पे हुआ, द ट्रेन जिनका एक्सीडेंट हुआ, वहाँ पे देखा गया सिर्फ एक ट्रेन, only one train followed the norms and others did not. Because of the lack of knowledge with the pilots, this accident happened. So what is the मतलब कि way forward to avoid these accidents in the future? It is said that they should install coverage system. By the use of coverage system, if any two trains come near to each other, it would automatically break their speeds and put these trains on the halt. How it could do so? Because of the RFID chips. This gives the distance between the two trains and it automatically stops the trains. It is developed by this coverage system is developed by the RDSO. So this was about the report on Kanchenjunga rail accidents. Moving forward, we have the last article. It talks about the public capital expenditure. it has reduced in the first quarter due to the elections in our country. And also the only good thing which we saw in this is the private investment has increased. So with this we conclude today's discussion. I hope it was very easy for you. I tried to explain this in the very simple language. Please do write in the comments if any अगर कोई चीज़ मुझे improve करनी है इसमें. Please do write in the comments. So with this we conclude our discussion. Now let's give a final look what we had discussed in today's discussion. The first article we discussed about the intergenerational equity on tax devolution. We discussed about the tax devolution. We discussed about intergenerational equity. We discussed about the sources of the government. We discussed about the Ricardian equivalence theory, and we finally discussed about the intrageneration equity. And उसके बाद we discussed about the post harvest losses. We discussed about the logistics losses, and we discussed about the role of the trains. Then we discussed about the lack of jobs. We discussed about the demographic dividend, and we also discussed about the fear of demographic disaster. We discussed why government is not able to give us the jobs. Then we discussed about the problems with subcaste reservation. We discussed about the 2004 Supreme Court judgment, and we discussed about the violation of Article 14. We discussed about the 2024 7 judge bench, which are going to have a relook on the 2004 judgment. And finally, we discussed about the policies which are required for the upliftment of the scheduled castes or subcastes. And finally, we discussed about the political reservation of women. We discussed it in context to the UK elections and the recent elections held here. We discussed about the quota in political parties. And after that, we discussed about the Maharashtra's public security bill. We discussed about why it is called the draconian law. If even though we have UAPA and Makako in Maharashtra, why still they brought it? And after that, we discussed about the report on Kanchenjunga accidents, and finally the public capital expenditure. With this, we conclude our discussion. So my request to you guys is please do subscribe the channel and share it with your friends. Thank you very much. Thank you for staying here.